Hey everyone! Welcome to The Young and the Restless. I'm Jane, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love Young and the Restless, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in. For years, the rivalry between Jack and Billy Abbott has torn their family apart. But what if the truth runs deeper than business or jealousy? What if their hatred stems from a dark secret buried in the past? In a bombshell revelation, Jack finally unleashes his pent-up rage, exposing the real reason he despises Billy. And it's not just about their endless feuds or betrayals, it's about blood. About family. About a lie that changed everything. Rumors have swirled for decades. Could Jack and Billy actually share more than just a last name? Is there a twisted connection between them that no one saw coming? Jack is ready to drop the ultimate bombshell, and it all leads back to his true biological parents. Was John Abbott really Jack's father? Or was his entire life built on a devastating lie? The revelation could shatter the Abbott legacy forever and rewrite history for Genoa City's most powerful family. Billy won't believe what he's about to hear. And when the truth comes out, there's no going back. Will this finally destroy their relationship for good? Or could this shocking secret force them to confront their past and change their future? Don't miss the explosive moment Jack reveals everything, because when the dust settles, the Abbotts will never be the same again. The drama, intrigue, and stakes of family secrets in this teaser keep viewers interested. Do you want the tempo or tone to be changed in any way? In the most recent shocking development on The Young and the Restless, Jack Abbott finally speaks out and reveals the underlying causes of his intense animosity toward Billy Abbott. This revelation upends the Abbott family's foundation and reveals long-kept secrets regarding Jack's real ancestry. Jack and Billy's antagonism has been a major source of contention for years. It manifests itself in board meetings, family get-togethers, and private betrayals. However, Jack now reveals the truth in a moment of unvarnished honesty, revealing not only his hatred for Billy but also the startling truth of his own biological heritage, a truth that completely reinterprets everything the Abbott dynasty has ever stood for. Jack and Billy's enmity has always been a conflict of egos, values, and unresolved sorrow rather than merely sibling rivalry. Billy has long been seen by Jack, the methodical and disciplined father, as impetuous, careless, and undeserving of the Abbott name. However, his hatred is more profound beneath the surface, stemming from a fact so agonizing that he has suppressed it for decades. Jack eventually admits that his hatred for Billy isn't merely based on personal or professional grievances, rather, it stems from identification, betrayal, and the heartbreaking insight that he was never really an Abbott by blood. This comes when the walls close in and old wounds reappear. The revelation that Jack's true father was not John Abbott, who reared him, but rather a man from his mother Dina's past, a secret she carried to her grave, came as a shock to Billy during a furious altercation. Jack's sense of self is completely destroyed by this realization, which makes him doubt every choice he makes, every connection he enters into, and every moment of his existence. His resentment of Billy, who carries the Abbott bloodline despite his imperfections, is fueled by the realization that he was never really John's son, even if he was raised in his image. Jack's anger isn't limited to Billy's behavior, it also stems from the harsh irony that Billy, the family's outcast, is the real heir in ways that Jack will never be. The effect from Jack's confession is terrible and happens instantly throughout Genoa City. Billy, who is shocked by the information, struggles to understand that his brother's animosity was never only a rivalry but rather the result of an existential crisis that Jack has been silently going through. Already shattered by betrayals and power battles, the Abbott family is now put to the ultimate test, one that will make them face the lies that have molded their history. The truth is both freeing and devastating for Jack. The man who based his entire identity on control, discipline, and the Abbott name now has to face the reality that it was all a lie. Billy, meanwhile, must come to terms with the fact that Jack's brutality was motivated by suffering, which he had never been able to comprehend before. Beyond their broken relationship, Jack's confession carries a heavy emotional burden that shakes their connections with other family members. Ashley, Kyle, and Summer are all left in shock and start to wonder where they fit into the family tree. Additionally, the disclosure rekindles long-standing animosities between Ashley and Jack, who has a complex past with Dina's secrets. Long-standing grievances resurface with new vigor as alliances change, loyalties are put to the test, and the Abbotts try to comprehend the truth. The Abbott dynasty, which was previously unassailable, is now in a precarious position with an unclear future. The discovery that Jack's hatred for Billy was, in many respects, a projection of his own self-loathing is arguably the most devastating part of his revelation. Jack has taken great delight in upholding John Abbott's legacy and serving as the family's moral compass for many years. Everything he held about himself is called into question when he learns that he was never really John's son. His harsh, contemptuous, and occasionally brutal behavior of Billy was an attempt to punish someone who, in his opinion, exemplified the legitimacy he would never be able to achieve. Now that he knows the truth, Jack has to choose between holding on to his resentment and facing the suffering that has long defined him. One question remains when the dust settles: will Jack and Billy ever be able to move on from this? Or has any possibility of reconciliation been permanently shattered by the disclosure of Jack's true parentage? Billy may find empathy if he realizes that Jack's anger was rooted in a deep-seated sense of fear and betrayal, but forgiveness won't be simple. The history is too tense, and the wounds are too deep. Furthermore, Jack's future is much less assured. Now that he has lost the identity he has held onto for decades, he must reinvent himself as his own man rather than John Abbott's son. The Abbott family's future will surely be shaped by the consequences of Jack's confession in ways that no one can foresee. The Young and the Restless presents its most compelling plot ever, one that questions the fundamental definitions of family, loyalty, and legacy as long-held secrets are revealed and new alliances are formed. Viewers are left wondering as Jack and Billy make their way through this new reality, can the truth ever fully free them in a world founded on lies? Will it only widen the gaps that have been tearing them apart for years? There is no doubt that Genoa City will never be the same. This plot's emotional depth is evidence of the show's skill at fusing compelling drama with intricate familial dynamics. Jack's admission is more than just a story twist, it's a turning point that makes all of the characters rethink their past, present, and future. His character is given depth by the disclosure of his biological parents, which changes him from a powerful individual to a man experiencing existential crisis and extreme vulnerability. The next chapter of their turbulent relationship will be decided by Billy's response, which might be either pity, rage, or something else entirely. The Young and the Restless promises even more surprises as viewers digest this momentous revelation. As the Abbott family's foundation is shattered, tensions will heat up, secrets will keep coming to light, and new coalitions will emerge among the mayhem. Jack's path to self-acceptance will be difficult, and Billy's character development will be put to the test as he struggles to accept his brother's reality. The ghost of Dina's past hangs big amid it all, serving as a constant reminder that the misdeeds of the past always find a way into the present. In the end, Jack's animosity for Billy was never solely directed at Billy, rather, it was motivated by the unsaid reality that plagued him daily. Both men must now face the ghosts that have influenced their rivalry now that the truth is out. One thing is certain, The Young and the Restless has once again demonstrated its capacity to produce heartbreaking drama that keeps viewers on the edge of their seats, regardless of whether this results in redemption or further devastation. Both the Abbott family and the viewers who watch them fall apart will never be the same. Sitting by himself in the dark corner of society, Jack Abbott sipped his scotch carefully while his mind raced over decades of repressed remorse, hatred, and truths that had been kept concealed for too long. The time had finally come for him to unburden himself, not just to the world but also to himself, from the weight of what he was going to divulge, which threatened to crush him. Every time he looked at Billy, a hurt ran through his chest that went beyond the usual brotherly tension. It was about more than just personal failures, rash decisions, or business betrayals. No, there was more to it, something that had been there since he was a toddler, when he first held his supposed younger brother in his arms. Even though he didn't fully comprehend it at the time, he had always had a sneaking suspicion that something wasn't right. Billy was everything Jack was not: freedom without consequences, love without effort, a legacy bestowed upon him without the blood and sacrifice Jack himself had to pay. This was what Jack detested most about Billy, not just his recklessness or the way he consistently blew up everything he touched. But at last, the truth was ready to be revealed, and Jack was ready to say the words that would alter everything for the Abbott family as a whole, not just for himself. A letter was the first step. A letter concealed within an antique briefcase that had once belonged to their mother, Dina Murgeron, or so Jack had always thought. Jack had made an effort to move over his resentment of her abandonment, her indiscretions, and the instability she had woven into their early years after she passed away. However, even though he was afraid of what might be inside, he felt an odd urge to open the envelope that was marked "For Jack, when he's ready." The letter's contents rocked his world, and the handwriting was distinctively Dina's, elegant and slightly crooked. Dina acknowledged that she had always knew Jack wasn't the real son of John Abbott. He was the child of an affair, but it had been with a man who was not associated with Genoa City's elite, not a wealthy socialite or influential businessman. Dina had met him on a summer vacation in Chicago. He was a quiet, reserved man named James Hunter, a former writer. After their brief but intense affair, Dina returned to Genoa City and told John that the child was hers without telling him. Ever loyal and determined to keep the family's image of perfection intact, John took the child as his own without ever questioning the truth, or maybe he had suspected but decided to keep it a secret. Jack was completely stunned by the realization. All of his beliefs about himself, his place in the Abbott family, and his unwavering will to succeed and earn John's name all made sense at once. In an attempt to live up to a man who had not fathered him but had reared him like a son, he had fought his entire life for a heritage that was never really his. Regarding Billy, he was unquestionably John's biological child. Billy, who was born out of John and Jill's affair, was everything that Jack wasn't: the legitimate son, the successor, the one who didn't have to struggle for love or acceptance since it came naturally to him. Nevertheless, Billy had wasted every chance that had come his way. Despite destroying enterprises, burning bridges, destroying money, and betraying those closest to him, he always managed to get back on his feet. Jack, who had devoted his life to creating Jabot, upholding John's legacy, and being the reliable older brother, found himself cleaning up Billy's mess all the time, growing more resentful of him every year. Jack's jaw tightened as he remembered all the times he had stood up for Billy, covered for him, and even jeopardized his own morals to protect him from the fallout from his own mishaps. The gambling scandals, failed business endeavors, betrayals of trust, and, worst of all, personal injuries had occurred. For example, one of the most painful and humiliating periods of Jack's life was when Billy had slept with his then-wife, Phyllis. Even though that treachery had almost devastated him, Jack had made himself forgive. But it was duty, guilt, and deep-seated self-loathing rather than true forgiveness. Because the voice in Jack's mind that kept saying, "He's the real son," was more painful than Billy's treachery. The outsider is you. You never belonged. Jack had been plagued by that voice for years, and now he knew its origin. He was aware of the irony that Jack, who had lived up to the Abbott name, was the result of an affair, the same type of secret for which he had condemned Dina, while Billy, who had never valued what he had, was the real Abbott. But despite this reality, Jack didn't feel liberated. It exacerbated the discomfort, if anything. Since he wasn't a true Abbott by blood, how could he continue to govern Jabot and uphold the Abbott legacy? He considered his own kid, Kyle, and pondered whether Kyle's self-perception or his place in the family might be impacted by this discovery. Would he anger Kyle? Would he think Jack was a phony who had based his fortune on deception? Then there was Ashley. Jack wasn't certain how or when he would be honest with her. Even Ashley, who had always maintained her Abbott identity, had learned years ago that she was not John's real daughter. She had almost been broken by that realization. Through that tempest, Jack had reassured her and helped her see her value beyond biology. He wasn't sure if he had the strength to withstand it, though, and he was in the same situation now. Because of the lies he had spoken, the manipulations he had rationalized in the name of safeguarding Jabot, and the relationships he had ruined in his quest for power, he wondered if this was karma. Perhaps the universe was making him face the truth about himself and the reason he had devoted so much of his life to proving something. Jack didn't yell or act angry when he finally faced Billy. The silence seemed hauntingly serene. He requested that Billy take a seat and simply listen, without interjecting or deflecting. And Billy did, for once. Jack filled him in on everything, including the letter, Dina's admission, and James Hunter's true identity. He saw Billy's expression change from bewilderment to incredulity to remorse. For the first time, Jack noticed a glimmer of empathy in Billy's eyes that he had never noticed before. However, it was insufficient. Even though he wore the Abbott name like armor, Jack exposed everything, the hurt, the animosity, and the sense of being on the outside looking in. Billy, the golden child, threw it all away, but he reminded Billy that his animosity stemmed from a lifetime of feeling like he had to show he belonged, not from a single betrayal. Jack interrupted Billy's attempt to reply, to apologize, to say he had no idea. Billy, it's not about what you knew. It's about things you didn't need to know. It was always there for you. Jack's voice trembled as he replied, you never had to question if you belonged. The truth eventually leaked forth like a dam. I've dedicated my life to becoming the son that John Abbott would be proud of, only to discover that I wasn't even his son. You never considered it a sacred thing, even though you were his in every sense. You handled it as though it were throwaway. Both men sat in the ensuing silence, burdened by their common past as well as the irrevocable shift that had just occurred. Jack had no idea what was going to happen next. He wasn't sure whether he would resign from Jabot, tell the truth, or keep going by the Abbott name in spite of everything. He was aware that he was no longer able to maintain the lie. For the first time in his life, Jack was prepared to live as the man he really was, not the ideal older brother, not the son of James Hunter, and not the heir to John Abbott. Only Jack. Then it occurred to him that perhaps it was sufficient. Perhaps his authenticity, broken, complex, and profoundly human, was more potent than any legacy could ever be. Jack felt lighter, even if only a little, as he got up and left Billy with his thoughts at the table. Now that the truth was out, he would at least have the opportunity to influence his future on his own terms, even though it wouldn't change the past.